Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sonoma Raceway, where today we're going to have our first qualifying session since, I want to say, North Wilkesboro. Oh, and a little bit of contact right out of the gate here between McGuire and Martin Nixon as he's the first one to exit out onto the racetrack. That would be Bobby McGuire here in this number 3. We're going racing for the first time here at the Sonoma Raceway later on tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, Elijah Leonard here with you to bring the action, to figure out the 6 drivers that will be moving on into tonight's show before we set the starting lineup for the Toyota Savemart 350. We had ourselves a very interesting race at the Michigan International Speedway last week that wound up seeing Roberto Crown Jr. walk away with his first Pepsi Cup Series win of his career and of the season. Now we go from the 2-mile facility of Michigan to wine country over here at the Sonoma Raceway, and it's gonna be, I'd say this is gonna be a pretty interesting race, given the fact that obviously this might come down to pit strategy, to say the least. You know, when it comes down to when it all just boils down to how this race is gonna be won later on tonight. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore because I'm not really making a whole lot of sense. But McGuire now officially on the clock. These drivers are going to have 15 minutes. And remember, it's the top 6 that move on into tonight's show, and will make up the rest of the 42 car field that will set the starting lineup here just after this session is complete. McGuire's going to work his way down on this right-hander right into the S's. And Sonoma Raceway is going to be, I mean, like, it's already an interesting road course as is, and definitely got a lot of history, especially in the McDonald's Cup Series last year, where we saw John Felber going on to victory lane and grabbing his first McDonald's Cup Series win back when the NRLA McDonald's Cup Series was running. But now with the WRLA Pepsi Cup Series, this is our first trip to Sonoma, and we've had a couple of times on the schedule between 2017, 2020, and 2023 where we could have come here to Sonoma, but now we're actually getting the chance to do it. A minute 14 here for Bobby McGuire, and we already had a car that went off the racetrack and right into the dirt. I'm not 100% sure who that could have been, but we'll definitely have to look at a replay once we have an opportunity to do it. All these other drivers are putting down minute 22s. A lot of that is because their pit box is just behind the start finish line, so their laps would start the moment that they cross that line, trying to get up onto the racetrack. Take a look further in the back, further behind McGuire. Here's Ray Atikian being trailed by Joshua Cornish in the 89. Cornish, who was in last week's race at the Michigan International Speedway, trying to make this one. And Atikian trying to make his first Pepsi Cup race since I want to say North Wilkesboro. Across the stripe they'll go. Gondillo lays down a minute 14.693. Cornish and Atikian were second and third, but not anymore. Travis Crampton to the top of the board with a minute 13.758 as he goes to the top of the charts, kicking McGuire back to second, then Cornish third, Janiah Hill sitting in the 4th spot. Then Chase McClure rounding out your top 5, and then Josiah Munsell holds on to that final transfer spot to get into tonight's Toyota Savemart 350. Travis Crampton, though, is another driver that Another driver that I believe, I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember if he wound up making last week's race. I don't think he did via the draw, but coming into this week, he obviously is in a very good spot to try to get his way into tonight's event. Only driver thus far to lay down a minute 13 lap. Does he improve it here? He does not, but still holds on to that top spot. Shania Hill goes to second on the board with a minute 14.096. And that puts Bobby Maguire on the bubble spot to get into tonight's event. Tyler Sustry with a minute 14.152. That puts him up into the 4th position. That knocks Maguire out and puts Chase McClure on the bubble. Tyler Sustry, another driver that we haven't seen in a good little while. Trying to get into here to today's race, and should be pretty interesting. A lot of what's going on here is definitely very interesting, because this is the first road course race that we've had since COTA back in March. That saw Valkyrie Atikian go on to win that race, but I don't even know what to say. My mind's pretty foggy, and I mean, I'm trying to do the best that I can here, but this weekend is going to be pretty interesting here at Sonoma, because of the hot temperatures, and also a lot of the twists and the turns. But a lot of it is just going to boil down to that pit strategy, and who's got the best. Basically, who's just got the best strategy when it comes down to pit stops, the 4-tire changes, the fuel. Making the fuel, yeah, that is another thing, just obviously making the fuel last. So it's gonna be something to look out here, to look out for, excuse me. How about this? Michael DeFeo jumping up to the 3rd spot with a minute 14.006. Chase McClure got himself out of the bubble spot. He's in 2nd with a minute 13.870. That puts Ryan Gundillo on the bubble spot. And Kyler Sustry is currently out of the top 6 with 7 minutes to go here in this knockout qualifying session for the part-timers. As you see on your ticker on the left-hand side of your screen, obviously Travis Crampton still remains on top of the board with a minute 13.7. Then it's McClure in the 2nd position with a minute 13.8. Michael DeFeo, I think he might have just improved his time here with a minute 13.975. Still in that 3rd spot. Occupying 4th, that would be Janiah Hill. Then Josiah Munsell would complete the top 5. And then Ryan Gundillo, who we touched on just a minute ago, still holding on to that bubble spot with a minute 14.131. And it's Kyler Sustry on the outside looking in, followed by Ray Atikian, Nikki Fox, and as well as Jordan Sumner. And then we go below Bobby Maguire, who started off the session on top of the board with his minute 14.162. Hasn't really found any other speed in that number 3. But now, this gets pretty interesting. Actually, not much has really changed inside of the top 6, but Martin Nixon, on the other hand, jumps up to 7th with a minute 14.141. So he currently is on the outside looking in by 10 1/1000ths of a second. That's the difference between the bubble spot of Ryan Gundillo and Martin Nixon here in this number 2. But going back to Bobby Maguire, he really hasn't had a lot of success since the start of the session, trying to find any other extra speed in this number 3 to try to get this car to handle a little bit better through the corners and possibly try to get his car back into the show. And then you have Ajax Fitzgerald in the number 92, minute 14, 2:28 for him. And then the 89 of Joshua Cornish, dead last with a minute 14, 2:55. Here's Cornish. There's also Fitzgerald in the 92. Whom I believe hasn't really made a whole lot of starts here in the Pepsi Cup Series, if I'm not mistaken. I can't even remember when was the last race that he was in. Or if he's just struggling to try to keep up with his teammates of Jerry Rose and also Andrew Ramsey. But he is a Lightstar Racing co-driver. This is just a part-time entry for this team. But they really haven't found a whole lot of success here with this 92, so especially here today. They might, so once we get into another off, get some weeks off before we go to Nashville at the end of July, I think this team is definitely going to have to possibly get to work here on this number 92 and try to make the necessary adjustments and try to pass some notes around from the 67 camps and as well as the 00 camps over to the 92 and try to get a little bit of notes from here and there and apply them over to this car. That way Lightstar Racing Co. can have 3 entries in a race, maybe 2 or a few. With less than 3 minutes to go, so far, no changes inside of the top 6. Travis Crampton still on top of the board. Those top 3 that currently have that minute 13 lap time still holding up pretty strong, especially as of right now. Janiah Hill still 4th with that minute 14. Josiah Munsell trying to get into his 2nd consecutive Pepsi Cup Series race so far this year. When it comes down to consecutive starts, I mean, obviously Munsell has made more than just 2 starts this year. He won a duel to get into the Daytona 500 earlier this year. He's made a few other races since then. He is, and just remember, he is also a Pepsi Cup Series winner. He did win the Daytona 500 back in 2020. Obviously for his own team, but the landscape of things has changed just a little bit more for Josiah Munsell. But this 26 team has shown a good amount of speed this year. When it comes to, the part-time camps, and it's actually kind of impressive of how he really hasn't picked up any other additional sponsorship for this car. So we'll just have to wait and see what the landscape of things looks like for Josiah Munsell as the season does continue on. When it comes down to that sponsorship deal, and also on top of that, how much more speed that this 26 camp can put together here as the season goes on. 1 minute remaining here in this knockout qualifying session. If you want to try to get yourself into the race, obviously this is going to be your last opportunity to do it within this 1 minute, and whatever extra time is going to be distributed to all these cars. And a lot of trouble there on the exit of turn 11. Fitzgerald was around there in front of Ray Atikian, and both of those cars pretty much came to a dead stop right in the middle of the racing line. We'll have to still go back and see what happened going into turn 1 that caused all those caused somebody to go off into the dirt. We'll just have to we'll have to take a look at a replay before we get on down to our main qualifying sessions here for tonight's Pepsi Cup Series events. Minute 13 has been added, so that way these drivers can have enough time to put down one more lap And if you were at the point where Travis Crampton and others were at on the racetrack, you're definitely going to get this lap in time. But as for everybody else, I may not have a whole lot to say there. There's not really much to say, unfortunately. Coming back to the line. The last official lap completed here by Crampton, Hill, McClure, Atikian, as well as Fitzgerald and Josiah Munsell. So their laps are completed. From this point on, their laps will not count since we are running out of time. 15 seconds remaining. And I think it's going to be too little too late for everybody else from 7th on down to try to put down a monster lap to get them into the top 6. So therefore, officially, your top 6 that will move on into tonight's show to make up the 42 car field will be Travis Crampton, Chase McClure, Michael DeFeo, Janiyah Hill, Josiah Munsell, and Ryan Gundillo holds on by 10 1,000ths of a second over Martin Nixon to get into the show. Big congratulations to those top 6 drivers for making the race. And as for 7th on down, as you can see here, we've got Martin Nixon. He's not going to make the show. Same for Kyler Sustry. You also have Ray Atikian, Nikki Fox. They complete your top 10. And then the other 4 drivers that will have to pack up and get ready for Nashville here in the next few weeks. Jordan Subner, Bobby McGuire, Ajax Fitzgerald, and Joshua Cornish. These 7 drivers from 7th on down, they will have to sit out and watch this race from the sidelines. So, with that said, let's go back and review what happened that caused the first accident. Let's go back. Let's take a look at this. Let's go back and take a look at this before we get on down into our qualifying sessions here for tonight. Just waiting on exactly where. Oh, there it is. Well, this is actually pretty interesting. So right here, this is Ajax Fitzgerald. He's trying to get out onto the racetrack, and here comes Michael DeFeo. The thing is, the pit exit, and where you merge into the racing line, that's exactly where the racing line is at, is right where Ajax Fitzgerald was and Michael DeFeo was trying to aim at. And obviously, as you just saw there, DeFeo gets into Fitzgerald, and that's what sent DeFeo right into the dirt. Fortunately for DeFeo, he is going to make the show regardless. He put down the 3rd fastest lap to get him into the top 6. Unfortunately for Fitzgerald, he is going to have to watch this race from the sidelines along with the rest of the other drivers that failed to make the show. But ladies and gents, when we come back, we're going to have ourselves knockout qualifying here for the WRLA Pepsi Cup Series Toyota Savemart 350 from here at the Sonoma Raceway. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
If you want to watch a stream, you have to be ad-free because he gives you like 3 in an hour or minute. Please just do what he wants and he will give you the victory royale because he is very good at Fortnite. Not really, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he is really good at Fortnite. Yeah, he is good at Fortnite.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This time it is for qualifying here at the Sonoma Raceway to determine the starting lineup for your Toyota Savemart 350 here tonight. First car to hit the racetrack, as far as I'm concerned, that would be the number 19. This is Wyatt Walker. Wyatt didn't fare too well last week at Michigan. He ended up having an incident in the pits right within the first quarter of the race. Wound up getting into Braden Perez, and that's what ultimately eliminated his chances of getting his first Pepsi Cup Series win. But tonight, he's looking to change all that and try to go to victory lane here at Sonoma. And just remember, after today, we will have 9 races left until we crown a champion at the Homestead Miami Speedway. And obviously 11 races overall, because remember that we are still making up the Coca-Cola 600 and the race at Pocono just shortly after the season finale, the championship race. Shortly after the championship race at Miami, which will be held on its intended date. Remember, Charlotte will be made up on Veterans Day, Tuesday, November 11th. And then the race at Pocono will be made up on that Saturday, November 15th. And then we would have ran all 23 races for the 2025 WRLA Pepsi Cup Series season. Just remember, and again, I do say that we're still holding the championship race at Homestead Miami, because after that, no points will no longer be awarded. The points will be locked up. So the next 2 races will be, well, obviously those 2 makeup races, obviously though no points will be awarded. So those 2 races are just going to be held just for fun and just to also make up for the lost, obviously like the lost time that we ended up having. That would have been used for Charlotte and Pocono. First lap across the stripe here for Wyatt Walker. It is a minute 13.658 and lots of trouble over into the turn 1 area. Something similar that wound up happening. And through the dirt again, that it would be Eric Monaco here in this number 31. And another car that is going through the dirt, that's Nathan Stapleton here in this 97. Going way wide here through this corner, heading into the next right-hander before going through the S's. Stapleton just trying to stay way off to the side. I'm pretty sure he was the guy that wound up going into the dirt, going through turn 1. But he's drawing up a lot of dirt over here. In some of the portions of the racetrack where he's trying to do his best to stay off to the side and out of harm's way. There are 2 rounds here to this qualifying session. The top 12 will move on to the final round. And Stapleton is going to make it to pit road here safely. But there are 2, but again, top 12 will move on to the final round for this qualifying session. Just remember, for road courses, there are 2 rounds. Road courses and short tracks, there are 2 rounds of qualifying. And for racetracks that are 1 mile and up, within 1 mile and up, yes, they'll have 3 rounds of qualifying, with the exception of short tracks and road courses that have 2 rounds. Aaron Abel goes to the top of the charts. Never mind, Alex Bonsignor goes up to the top of the board. And Janiyah Hill is off the course. I tell you what, that pit exit and that racing line, they definitely do overlap on top of each other, and this is the end result. Of course, Janiyah Hill being one of those drivers that got sent off into the dirt, but Alex Bonsignor to the top of the board with a minute 13:208. Bonsignor is somebody, when we came back at Michigan, who could have had himself a very good run, but unfortunately didn't get the finish that he was looking for, and he's still pretty deep in the point standings. Trying to look to turn that all around here today with a pole here at Sonoma. That could be very possible here today, and obviously you just saw there just a few moments ago the rear end damage to the one of Wayne Lopez. He's going to make it to pit road to get that damage assessed. But today could be the day where Alex Bonsignor sees victory lane for the first time since Talladega in 2017. It has been over 8 years since this 22 has seen victory lane. It's been 8 years since we've seen Bonsignor go to victory lane in the WRLA Pepsi Cup Series. Trying to turn all of that around here tonight. Yet another car that went way off course. That would be the 59 of Caleb Rose. Kaboom goes the Lenovo Chevy. Actually, a little bit of damage I see. The left front fender on that 59 is just... it's just been hit clean off of this car. I'm pretty sure that might have been more accidents heading into turn 1. Perez, we just saw him for a split second. He's on pit road as of right now. Let's keep track of Nathan Stapleton here, because he's coming back out onto the racetrack with a huge line of cars circling around this time by. Let's see if he's going to be able to make it out onto the racetrack safely. And he will successfully get on the racetrack and have a pretty safe entry. So, all clean and green over here for Stapleton. And that's actually pretty impressive. There's Valkyrie Atikian, who wound up winning at the Circuit of the Americas over in Austin, Texas, or back in March. Wound up winning that off of pit strategy and track position alone. The pit strategy that she wound up having at COTA was what ended up giving her the track position that she needed to challenge for the lead on Terry Walker and a couple of others, and not look back from there to get her first Pepsi Cup Series win. Now trying to get her second win on the year and on yet another road course win. It's Quentin Moore in the 04 machine. Moore ended up having himself a good run at Michigan just last week. Wound up having a few classic battles here with Emily Anderson and as well as Russell Blaze. That would be Moore's teammate here for Durrani Racing, but those three drivers, I mean, like especially Durrani, or especially Quentin Moore and Russell Blaze, those two wound up putting together some pretty good classics at the beginning of the race and right around that first quarter of the event. So I'm pretty excited to see what they're able to cook up here for this weekend. For Quentin Moore, unfortunately, he's not faring the greatest in qualifying, but definitely not the worst either. 22nd on the board with a minute 13:793, and his teammate of Russell Blaze currently sitting at a minute 13:632. But Blaze still trying to search for his first Pepsi Cup Series win. Came close on so many different occasions so far this year, but obviously has shown all season that he has the speed and has the consistency on his side. but still looking for that one thing that has been eluding him all year this year, and that is a win in the WRLA Pepsi Cup Series. So far, sitting 8th on the qualifying order, so he has himself a very good chance. Obviously, he's going to have himself a very good chance of timing his way into the final round, which is coming up here very shortly. That way he can have a go at the pole, and when you have a go at the pole, or at least a go at the front row, then you have yourself probably the very best chance at winning this race. And unless if you have the pit strategy down as well, if you got that too, as well as qualifying up at the front row, then you have yourself probably some of the best chances of winning. 35 seconds of that additional time. Drivers like Stapleton and DeFeo, Campbell, Marsh, and Russell Blaze, they're going to make it to the line to complete their laps. "15 seconds coming up here. And I don't think there's going to be anybody else that is going to challenge for any of the top 12 spots. So, moving on into the final round, it is going to be Alex Bonsignor, Aaron Abel, Stephen Colon, Eric Monaco, Ryan Gundillo, Noah Clifton, Caleb Rose after blowing a motor earlier, Russell Blaze, Roberto Crown Jr., Valkyrie Atikian, Wyatt Walker, and Kyle Craven. Those will be your 12 drivers that will be going for the pole in tonight's Toyota Savemart 350. And as for 13th all the way on down to 42nd, that is where they will be starting here in tonight's race. See them all right there, from Terry Walker all the way down over to, well, there's 41 cars, so we are missing somebody. Well, shoot. That's actually kind of unfortunate, because there should be 42. I'm not sure why there's 41. There should be 42. But whoever the missing driver is, whoever the missing driver is, they are we should definitely at least award them some amount of points. I definitely don't think there should be anybody missing, unless if there was somebody that didn't go out onto the racetrack. At least I don't think so. But nonetheless, from 13th all the way down, this is where they will be starting for tonight's Toyota Savemart 350. But when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be time to go for the pole for tonight's events here at the WRLA Pepsi Cup Series at the Sonoma Raceway. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a few.
If you want to watch a stream, you have to be ad-free because he gives you like 3 in an hour or minute. Please just do what he wants and he will give you the victory royale because he is very good at Fortnite. Not really, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he is really good at Fortnite. Yeah, he is good at Fortnite.
And ladies and gentlemen, it is go time here for the final round of WRLA Pepsi Cup Series qualifying here at the Sonoma Raceway. It is time to determine who will start on the pole and start on the front row for tonight's Toyota Savemart 350. So far, 30 seconds have gone by, and we really haven't seen anybody make a move to get out on the racetrack just yet. So we'll just have to wait and see. And there's the first taker. Out on track, that is the number 59 of Caleb Rose. Rose is the first taker to head out onto the racetrack. Blaze and Atikian will follow. See if there's anybody else. Kyle Craven is going to make his way out. So far, 5 cars have elected to make their way out on the racetrack for their go at the pole. So far, Caleb Rose is the first driver to make this attempt. Honestly, I do think it's absolutely amazing to see Caleb Rose up here contesting for this pole position, especially with the season that he's had, especially for his whole team of Appalachia Motorsports with Bruno Diacomo as well in the 95. This team altogether of I'm having a tongue twister, excuse me, of Appalachia Motorsports, the whole team has just not really performed up to the expectations, up to their own expectations of what they've been looking for all year, as well as what they would normally perform in other NR 2003 leagues. Things have just not really looked up for Appalachia Motorsports over here in the WRLA side of things, but hopefully for Caleb Rose, with a go of the pole here in this final round of qualifying and possibly locking himself into the pole or maybe second position, that it betters his chances of possibly going to victory lane here tonight. So have to keep an eye here on this number 59 to see if they're going to have anything up their sleeves in Caleb Rose. Field works as Rose works his way through the S's. Noah Clifton following just behind him. Russell Blaze not too far back in the picture as well. Things are looking pretty interesting here as Rose makes his way through turn number 11 and heading back to the finish line, the start-finish line, to complete his lap. It is a minute 14:106, so times are looking a little bit slower than what they were a little bit ago as Blaze goes to the top with a minute 13:464. That is much faster than what Caleb Rose ran. So Blaze looking pretty good right now to possibly get himself his first Pepsi Cup Series pole, and Kyle Craven already putting in his first lap, his unofficial lap. I'd say that is his get up to speed lap. Stephen Colon and Ryan Gundillo, they're both They both obviously are. They just completed their get up to speed lap. Now it's go time for these drivers in particular. Eric Monaco with a minute 14, 134, and as well as his teammate of Roberto Crown Jr., minute 14, 145. Crown, who wound up winning at Michigan last week, currently with a lot of momentum on his side for his own team of Powerhouse Crown Racing. Eric Monaco, I'd say a pretty considerable amount of momentum on his end as well. Right around top 10 in the point standings for this number 31. The only other driver that hasn't really been faring too well this year for the team is Val Moscow. Moscow finds himself pretty deep in the points, but we'll review those once we get to the race later tonight. And to the top of the standings, that would be Noah Clifton with a minute 13, 454. 8/1000ths of a second faster than the 69 of Russell Blaze. Clifton trying to search for his third Pepsi Cup Series win overall and his first on the season. If he does it, he will tie Emmanuel Hartnett as the most winningest driver in WRLA history. Currently stands at 3 right now. With 4 minutes to go, Monaco improves his time with a minute 13, 584. Caleb Rose also improved his time. It is now a 6:20, or no, I stand corrected. So Kyle Craven actually improved his time with a 5:60. He jumps up to third. And Caleb Rose gets kicked back to fifth with a now 6th with a 6:08 as Stephen Cologne jumps up to fifth with a minute 13, 6:04. So far, the only two drivers that have yet to officially lay down a lap are both Wyatt Walker and Alex Bonsignor. They have not, unfortunately, laid down a lap yet. So let's see what it's going to look like here for Wyatt Walker across the stripe. Or he's just started. Oh boy. He just started. For Valkyrie Atikian, a very slow lap on her and a 2 minute, 5 second, 0.56 second one lap. Or 5.61. Did I say 5 second one? A 2 minute, 5.5. A 2 minute, 5.56 1 second lap. That's what I meant to say. But it's definitely going to be better across the stripe here. At least it has to be. Unless if that was her get up to speed lap. Huh. Well, that's pretty interesting. So Bonsignor jumps up to 10th with a minute 14, 129. But his time should definitely improve once he completes his lap. At least that is the hope. As for Wyatt Walker, he's coming around to complete this lap. So we'll see exactly where he stacks up. And that would be a minute 14:18. So things looking pretty grim here for both Wyatt Walker and Alex Bonsignor in this qualifying session with a minute 35 remaining. We'll keep an eye on Alex Bonsignor, see if he's able to pick up on his lap. He was pretty quick in round 1 of qualifying, managed to be at the top of the board, but things are not looking too great here for this time around. Across the stripe. Improved it, minute 13, 6:26, as did Valkyrie Atikian. Atikian improved her lap. It is now a minute 14.114. Walker's making his way through turn 11. Currently 4/1000ths of a second slower than Valkyria Tikian, but hopefully the time should be a little bit better once we come across the stripe. And it kind of is, a minute 13:668 for Wyatt Walker. That would be a top 10 starting position for this number 19 with 20 seconds remaining on the clock. Stephen Cologne jumped up to third with a minute 13:552. How about that there for Stephen Cologne in this number 25? Our winner from Rockingham trying to get his second win of the season. Across the stripe, minute 13 has been added. Valkyria Tikian, surprise, surprise, jumping up to third with a minute 13:556. Tikian looking pretty speedy here in this session. 55 seconds to go. But it probably might be just a little too, just too little too late. A bit too little too late. It might be here, but we'll see what happens here within these next 40 seconds. Clifton gonna be able to come back around to complete his lap. Same for Russell Blaze in the 69. Caleb Rose looking to make his way back out on the racetrack, but he's not going to have any time whatsoever to put down one more lap. So with that, with 5 seconds to go, I think we can safely say your front row is going to consist of Noah Clifton, who will win the pole here for tonight's Toyota Savemart 350. Russell Blaze will line up alongside. They're going to lead the field to the green flag, and then occupying the second row, that would be Valkyria Tikian and Stephen Cologne. Row 3 will be Kyle Craven and Eric Monaco. Row 4 will see Aaron Abel and Caleb Rose. Row 5 will be our Michigan winner of Roberto Crown Jr. and the 22 of Alex Bonsignor. That will be your top 10 starting positions heading into tonight's race here at the Sonoma Raceway. Wyatt Walker and Ryan Gondillo, they will make up row number 6. And with that said, ladies and gents, that's going to wrap up qualifying here at the Sonoma Raceway. Want to thank you guys a lot for watching this. If you guys like this, be sure to hit the like button. And if you haven't considered subscribing yet, be sure to hit the subscribe button in order to keep up with some fine content coming out in the near future. We will be back over on Twitch at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the running of the Toyota Savemart 350. Be sure to tune in over there. And it's going to be a pretty, I'd say a pretty good race of attrition and endurance and a little bit of pit strategy for these drivers. So it's going to be a fun one to watch. And we'll see you guys at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitch for the run.